Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. Today's guest is somebody that hosts a podcast called The Grill is Hot inside the Berger shop to talk about the upcoming NBA season. Ryan Berger, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me again. Really appreciate it.
Of course. So many storylines to get into for the season. I do not want to talk about the China LeBron James, Daryl Morey debacle. I feel like that's been enough covered on my own podcast, so I really don't want to get into that. And speaking of Los Angeles, that feels like the place to be for the NBA. Two great teams in the Clippers and the Lakers. Which one do you feel more confident in this season and why?
I think they're both going to be really, really strong. Both have championship aspirations. Both have basically two of the top 10 players in the league on each team. And both are going to be willing to add whatever pieces need to be added to take that extra leap as we get closer to playoff time and eventually to the finals. The Clippers are built on defense, maybe the two best defensive players in the league. When you add Beverly, probably a third, maybe three of the top five defensive players in the league. They're going to be impossible to score on when those guys are on the floor together. And it should be very, very good. The Lakers, I think everybody's seen a little bit more of so far, obviously with Kawhi playing limited minutes and George out. You're not getting to see exactly what you'll be able to see with the Clippers. But with the Lakers, you've seen a number of games both in China and on ESPN. And you know, what you're seeing is a team that LeBron is going to run the point and has a couple different pieces around LeBron and Anthony Davis, like a Danny Green, a couple of the big guys and others.
Yeah, I watched.
A little bit slow, and a little bit lumbering, but I think they're going to add some speed and eventually be incredibly tough in the West.
Yes, I did watch the Lakers last night. Granted, it was a preseason game, and granted, Stephen Curry didn't play for the Warriors, but they did look awfully good. Clippers are a team that fascinates me because they're great defensively, so that's going to be so much fun to watch the Battle of LA this year. And that's on opening night, by the way, Tuesday, 10:30. It's a Clipper home game between them and the Lakers, so I'm looking forward to that. Another team that made an interesting move this offseason was the Houston Rockets, who bring in Russell Westbrook in for Chris Paul. How do you like that fit with Harden and Westbrook together? Do you like that or not?
I'm not a fan of it. I mean, they're two great players, so I'm sure they'll figure out for it a way to work. I'm not. I know there are some guys that really love Houston. I know notorious JVG is really on the Rockets this year. I'm not into the Rockets as much. They've had their shots. I just don't love sort of some of the other pieces at this point. Harden is great. I just don't know how it's going to work. I saw a lot of them last night, and Westbrook stands around while Harden dribbles the ball 300 times. He eventually makes a fadeaway three and gets fouled throughout the game. But it just looks odd to me, and it doesn't feel right. Can it work? I don't know. I just feel like between them having their shots the last couple of years, the weird chemistry between the two of them, the Morey issue, they fired all of D'Antoni's assistants out of nowhere. The West is loaded with depth, and they're absolutely one of those teams. I'm just not sure I like them over the first 4 or 5 teams in the West this year.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if they're going to get home court in the first round. I haven't done my official predictions yet, but I am leaning towards putting them in the bottom 4 in terms of the playoff teams in the Western Conference. The Golden State Warriors obviously made changes in the offseason. D'Angelo Russell in, Kevin Durant out, Klay Thompson's going to be hurt. Who knows, he could be back. Are you high on the Warriors this year without Durant and with Russell?
I'm not too high on them. I think they're going to struggle physically. Except for Draymond, they really have no guys that want to bang at all. Limited bigs. A lot of their wing players, stretch fours and two guards. I find them like lean, a little bit jumpy. Guys like McCaw, guys that are a little bit finesse, and the season's a long season. Curry's another finesse guy who can easily get banged up. He never plays 82 games. Obviously, Clay is banged up through most of the year. Draymond, if he's by himself, he's a totally different player. I think they will take the 8th spot or struggle to make the playoffs. If they get Clay back, I'm sure they'll be better. He's a good coach. They're a great defensive team. But again, without Clay, it changes everything.
Yeah, Clay, his absence definitely hurts them both offensively and defensively. But I think that the Russell addition kind of makes up for Clay's offense a little bit, obviously not defensively. I think defensively they're going to struggle, and I think Golden State overs in terms of gambling in their games are going to be profitable for those who gamble, like myself. Bradley...
I think Russell will help with the offense, replacing Clay's points, but his efficiency is nowhere near like Clay. So you're going to have a lot more shots and possessions for him to get those same points that Clay gets, which in turn, is not a great thing for a team.
Absolutely, yeah, I didn't even think about that. But I still think they're going to be okay offensively, but their defense is going to stink. Bradley Beal, it was announced this morning that he signed a 2-year, $72 million contract extension reported by Adrian Wojnarowski, who's the best in the business. What do you make about that? And I really think that hurts a lot of teams that looked upon him as the pivotal trade asset of this season.
I think, the Wizards did a great job. There's two ways to look at it. One is the Wizards did a great job of getting the best free agent on the market before he becomes a free agent, and they have him now for a total of 4 years. The other way to look at it, I think, between him and Wall, they're owed about $200 million, just the two of them. I think it's 200 or 300, one of the two. I mean, an incredible amount of money for a backcourt that's never won. And one of the guys is out all year. So, I don't know. If you're the Wizards, these are the kind of decisions that are impossible to make. Do you re-sign a guy like this, put a ton of money into him, and then know that in the next 2 to 3 years you're going to be in last place? Or do you sort of move on and start incredibly young again? It's a very, very difficult decision so many of these GMs have to make. And if I was running a team, I would obviously make those signings like a Beal signing, because you as the GM only have 2 years. So what do you care about 4 or 5 years down the road right now, when in 2 years you could be gone from your job?
Absolutely, yeah. I like Bradley Beal. I think he's a very good player. But I actually thought before this extension, obviously, that he was going to be traded. Obviously, that's not going to be the case this year with that extension. A team that looks entirely different from it did a year ago is the Boston Celtics. Out is Kyrie Irving, in is Kemba Walker. What do you make about the new-look Boston Celtics this season?
They should be good. I mean, I know they're new look, but they'll probably feel relatively, like a good Celtics basketball team. Very good guards and wing players. Obviously, all of them who played in the FIBA tournament this summer. So I'm sure they got, working on their games and getting closer. Great team chemistry within those individual guys. But you add Kemba, you add Kanter, two very, very gifted offensive players. Tatum should take the next step. I thought he looked really good before he got injured in FIBA. They should be, in the high 40s when it comes to wins this year, and be probably the 3 seed in the East. Celtics should have a good year.
Yeah, I agree with you. They have a good chance to me to get a home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. I think that the Kemba Kyrie thing is sort of a wash. What concerns me is the loss of Horford. I think that's a gain for Philly, loss for Boston. Ennis Kanter will help them offensively, but I don't think he's a good defensive player whatsoever. But that said, I'm high on the Celtics this year too. And speaking of Al Horford, what do you make with his fit in with Joel Embiid up in that front court in Philadelphia?
Well, one thing on Kanter, he's an incredible offensive rebounder and defensive rebounder as well. in the East, going up against fours, especially on that Celtic team, he shouldn't have awful evenings on the defensive side, or certainly as bad as he did, going up against guys like Aldridge or whoever it might be in the West of Portland. So he should have a little bit of a better matchups when it comes to some of the teams in the East, which will allow him to stay on the floor a lot more.
Yeah, that's true. He had some struggles there in the playoffs against like the likes of not Aldridge, but I've seen him struggle against like Jokic and whatnot in the playoffs. But there's been times that I've seen him actually have some good moments defensively as well. I remember he was fine against.
Who doesn't struggle against Jokic or Anthony Davis? These are the best players in the world. Nobody can guard them. But on a night in, night out basis, if you can keep them on the floor and you start to look at who the Celtics are up against, except for Philly, with an Embiid as an example, or Horford, there's not a ton of fours or even fives that he should have a ton of problems guarding this year.
That's true. Like the front courts in the East. I mean, Toronto has a strong front court, I think, with Gasol up there. But I don't know what the deal is with Siakam, if they're going to use him more as like a wing guy or as like a stretch four. So like Gasol, I could see being a tough match. But obviously, Embiid and Horford, to me, is the best front court in the Eastern Conference. What are your expectations for the Sixers? And how do you like that fit with Horford and Philly?
They should be very, very good. Just a default of a combination of incredible talent on the team with a really down conference. When you look at the conference, it's difficult to see a team that's going to take them on, except for, I guess, Milwaukee. I happen to be very, very high on Indiana this year, but even Indiana, I don't know who can really play with Philly when they're healthy, night in and night out. The Simmons stuff, I'm sure he'll come back with no jump shot. He won't even attempt them, but it seems to not really matter for them in the East because of how good their talent is, how good Embiid is, and how terrible the conference is. They've added some interesting pieces. Josh Richardson can play, can really defend, can fill it up. But they lost two interesting pieces that I think can be challenges for them. And one guy is McConnell, who did a very good job coming off the bench for Simmons, provided something totally different than Simmons did. And the second is Redick, who obviously gave them all their outside shooting for the most part, and was a key aspect of their offense. Losing both of those guys will be very interesting to see what happens, knowing that Simmons isn't going to come back with a jump shot. But Embiid is so good, and there's nobody in the league, especially in that conference, that can come close to guarding him. So as long as he stays healthy, it's hard to see them not in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing them not being in the Eastern Finals either. I feel like it's them and Milwaukee are the most likely candidates to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. Let's do some predictions and miscellaneous stuff. I love doing this with people like you and other guests I have on the podcast. Let's start with the awards. Who is your league MVP?
Hit me out of I wasn't prepared for those. I only did my knowledge on the teams. MVP. I think Anthony Davis is probably a major favorite. It's going to be, I don't know if he'll win it because of how many numbers he'll end up sharing with James, and he doesn't play a ton of games. I don't know. I guess I'd throw my hat into the Anthony Davis ring, or probably Giannis.
I'm going to go with probably Giannis because he won a year ago, but who knows? Maybe I'll go in a different direction. I'm leaning Giannis. What about the player that you think is going to have a breakout season? And normally that means they would probably win the most improved player. I lost Siakam last year, Victor Oladipo the year before.
Who do you like this year?
I have a couple guys in mind. Karis LeVert of Brooklyn, Jason Tatum of the Celtics, I thought he took a step back last year, and without Kyrie there, I think he can make a jump. Justice Winslow, if Miami doesn't trade him, I'm interested to see what kind of year he has. And out in the West, that's going to be more interesting. Jamal Murray, maybe. I could see a world where Donovan Mitchell takes like another jump for the Jazz. And another guy in the West. De'Aaron Fox of Sacramento is another guy that stands out. I don't know if I'll pick one of those 6 guys, but those 6 all intrigue me.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are 6 good ones. I think you've got, a lot of talent that you just mentioned. Mitchell had a great summer coming back on a very, very good team. Although I'm not sure the way everybody thinks Utah is going to easily win 50 games. I'm not entirely sold on that. One move I do really like that they made, and a guy who I'm sure I think will have a very good season is Bogdanovich in Utah. Very, very good player. In a really good fit for him. Reminds me of like a better Matt Harpring. I think when you look at some of the sort of players, so much of it depends on the fit. And I think more about teams. I mean, there's 2 interesting teams that we didn't talk about. One of the Memphis is a very interesting team to me. It rebuilt it the right way and have a great guard and stretch 4 and Morant and Triple J. If they could add a couple more pieces, I know they have Valanciunas, which is a nice big right now, and some of the other pieces, Dylan Brooks, sort of a guy who can break out at 23 last night in the third quarter and 30 in the game. He's a guy who gained a lot of muscle over the summer, played for Oregon. He could have a big year this year. I think Memphis could have an interesting year this year. I wouldn't put it past them that they're going to be that terrible. I can see them doing their thing. And then in the East, I think Atlanta is going to make the playoffs. I think they've got some really nice pieces. I've been all over their ownership. That's my guy over there, Jesse Etzler, pumping him up about the team he's got, and they've got some nice pieces. Although I'm not high on their draft pick this year out of Virginia, DeAndre Hunter, I love the other pieces. I love Trae Young. I loved him at Oklahoma. Thought he's the next Curry. John Collins is a great piece. They have veteran like Carter who can help. They have Kevin Berger, the shooter, coming off the bench. They should be a lot of fun to watch, and I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to get the 8th spot in the East.
Yeah, damn it. You took my Cinderella surprise team. I was going to ask you for a surprise team. My answer for that question is the Atlanta Hawks. I thought maybe a few months ago, maybe at the end of last year, I said, this could be that team that unexpectedly makes the playoffs in the East in the 2019-20 season, because there's always an unexpected East team. And mine is the Atlanta Hawks. I'm going to pick the Hawks to beat the 8th seed too, so I'm not alone on that prediction. So I guess you and I share the same surprise team. How about a team that's going to disappoint this year, you think? A team that people are high on that you don't see living up to expectations?
I'll be interested to see how the Spurs do this year. Pop coming off over in China. They've been so good for so long. The Rosen and Aldridge, is this the year that maybe things drop a level? They got the point guard, Derek White. I didn't think he played very well over at FIBA. I think if there's teams in the West that are going to make a step up, like a Memphis, like I mentioned, like a Sacramento, you're going to have teams that fall down. So I think Golden State might be one of those that falls down. San Antonio can potentially be one, although I hate picking against Pop and that organization. The 2 LA teams should be very, very good. I know people are very high on them. And another team that I think should be much better than they've been is Phoenix. They've got a nice little roster now. They've got some veteran help with Rubio. Aton should be another year more mature, and you put a guy like Rubio, a veteran, savvy European point guard, with that team, Booker and Aton, they're going to be tough at home. And on the road, I'm sure they'll struggle, but at home in Arizona, I could see them being a pretty good team. And again, so if I like Memphis and Phoenix, I think if you like those teams, some of the teams are going to have to get knocked down, like a Golden State, like a maybe Minnesota, who feels like a little bit stale right now.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what Memphis and Phoenix are. I think Memphis, you're right. I think they're going to be better than people think. I don't know if they're going to finish with the worst record in the West like people say they are, but I think that they're going to be an improved team from a year ago, and a lot of that, obviously, I'm big on John Morant. I think he's going to really push Zion for Rookie of the Year. I really am high on John Morant.
New Orleans is another team. Like, there's so many teams in the West that are legitimate playoff teams, and they're one of them. I love what they've done. Nobody cannot like what they've done. From getting Zion, getting so young, as most young guys do. It's hard to say which team isn't going to stay there because beginning of the year, a team like Portland, it's hard to say that they're on the decline when they got guys like Lillard and McCollum and now added Whiteside. They're also a tough team. One team that I'm not that high on, they are a sexy-looking team because of the big names that they have, and they've got a great coach. But I don't love the depth there, and that's the Mavericks. So again, somebody has to struggle in the West. And they've got, obviously, Doncic, who's incredible, and we'll see what Porzingis can do. I'm sure it'll be great. But I don't love the other guys there, and I just love the two of them with Carlisle.
Yeah, I'm not big on the Mavericks either. That, to me, is one of the teams I think can be a disappointment. And the other one is a team that you sound high on, and I know Notorious JVG is high on them, and that's the New Orleans Pelicans. I just think that it's just too much expectations for Zion. I think Zion's going to be the Rookie of the Year, no doubt about it. But I'm not sold that that's a playoff team. And I made the mistake last year in picking the Spurs to miss the playoffs, and that came back to bite me in the ass last year, so I'm not doing that again. So I like the Spurs over the Mavericks and the Pelicans this year. And I think that the Blazers are not in decline. I agree with you on the Blazers. Like, they have McCollum and Lillard. Like, why are people picking them to miss the playoffs? I mean, I know there's uncertainty in the front court and whatnot, but those two guys alone should be able to get you over 45 wins in the West. Like, I'm very, bullish on the Blazers and the chances they...
What happens is that people like 3 or 4 sleeper teams, and there has to be teams that fall out, and it's difficult to say which ones. So they are a very quiet sort of team, Portland, and had a really good year, and very, very tough to beat at home.
Yeah, I think the Pelicans are probably an over 500 team, but I don't know if they're a playoff team because there's always that team in the Western Conference that finishes over 500 and misses the playoffs. Like, you saw that with the Suns a while back ago, and Jeff Hornacek was the coach there. I believe there was another team in the West last year that finished over 500 but didn't make it. I can't think of who it was. It was the team that ended up with the 14th pick in the draft. I'll think of it. And then, every year...
The team that I'm highest on in the West, the team that I think is going to win the West, is actually Denver. And that just shows you how deep the West is. We've been talking for 30 minutes about the West and haven't mentioned them once. And they're just, their roster is loaded with Jokic a year back from an experience of tasting what it was like to get deep in the playoffs, but come up short deep in the fourth quarter. He looks like he got his body better, trimmed some of the fat, had a good FIBA. They added, interestingly, an incredible talent in Porter Jr., which was from last year's draft. He could legitimately be on the court deep in the fourth quarter now, and they've got so many pieces, Marquise Morris and Juancho, Hernan Gomez. They have the deepest roster by far in the league. And I think they're going to learn a lot from last year. I think he's a great coach, Michael Owen. I think Denver's got a real shot to win it all.
Yeah, I think Denver's very good. I think they have a legit chance to get the number 1 seed in the West, but I'm not really sure if they can get by one of the LA teams. That's the question, because I think the LA teams are going to sit some guys in the regular season with the load management, especially with Kawhi and the Clippers. So that really opens things up for teams like Denver and Utah to get that 1 seed in the West.
I think the Lakers, my thing with the Lakers, I think the Lakers will be there, but I think the Lakers will struggle against fast teams like a New Orleans. New Orleans is so fast, they push the ball up and down with young legs. The Lakers have old legs, so as the season goes on, except for Avery Bradley, they've got a lot of legs that get fatigued, they get tired, and if you sit those guys in load management, which they will, they can easily get the 3rd or 4th seed in the West if they sit those guys and some of them get banged up throughout the year.
Yeah, to me the Lakers are probably going to be in the 3-4 range unless if they don't do the load management thing with Davis and LeBron, and they could potentially get the 2 or the 1. You never know. Who's a coach in your opinion that's on the hot seat? Or I should say the hottest seat. We just saw in the NFL Jay Gruden lose his job. Who do you think's on the hottest seat in the NBA right now?
And the guy that the story I'm probably closest to from the standpoint of a fan, and the fact that nobody mentions anything is Fizdale. Here's a guy who came with the reputation that he's a player's coach and that he's going to attract free agents and players. And it's been the total opposite. Players have left. He was supposed to go to Latvia, build a relationship with Porzingis. That failed. Durant this summer, nobody came for the most part. So if they get off to a terrible start, can that be a situation at 2-12 or 2-15 and the Garden's booing that he's relieved? I can see that. In the West, is D'Antoni had a very good couple of years with all the rumblings now, and with his assistants being fired. I'm not sure what the deal is in Minnesota. They've struggled. It seems to have gone backwards there. Is that a place where something like that might happen? So those are probably 2 places. And I don't see Brett Brown and the Sixers getting off to a bad start. But if they somehow did with that talent, that's a place that I can see something happening as well.
Yeah, those are good options. One that intrigues me, though, and I think that this coach is under pressure, but it probably won't happen until the 2020-2021 season, is Ken Atkinson in Brooklyn. If that team fails, I mean, this is more of like a next season type of thing with Durant, but if it even goes bad this year with Irving, and like Irving has the same problems in Brooklyn than he did in Boston, like I wouldn't rule out Ken Atkinson being fired if that team underachieves this season. The Sans no Kevin Durant. So that's one that I would keep my eye on as well. I know you mentioned Fizdale, but I
don't see that. They love Atkinson there. He's not done one thing wrong. Built the thing up incredible. It's a close-knit situation there. I don't see them doing that at all. They also don't want Durant to come in looking like he's pick the coach and stuff like that. I think Atkinson's completely all on the up and up right now for Brooklyn.
Okay, I mean, I don't see it happening either, but I could, see rumblings, New York media bullshit rumblings about Ken Atkinson. I could just totally see that if Kyrie doesn't work out.
I'm not sure the New York media knows that the Nets even play in New York. I'm not even sure New York knows that the Nets are in New York. That's
true, but with Kyrie and Durant there, maybe they do become more relevant in this town. I know the Michael K. show here in New York, they've been talking about Brooklyn a little bit with the Kyrie Irving, with the facial injury. I know they were talking about that for a while and on the show. And I think that the Nets, will be a little bit more relevant than people think. Another team we just talked about, you mentioned the Knicks with Fizdale. I don't know if they'll get off to a horrific start, but that's a team that's rebuilding, and I obviously was not a fan of their summer. I made it well known on Twitter that I did not like anything they really did this summer. I thought they overpaid Julius Randle. If they overpaid anybody, I would have liked it to be D'Angelo Russell, who is a point guard and somebody that I really, really like and is still young. And it's just crazy to me that that Golden State was able to get him in that sign and trade for Durant. What are your expectations really for the Knicks this season? I don't see them winning like more than 35 games.
Well, I think 35 games. They're over under 30, so 35 I think is a nice prediction. I think you mentioned they're rebuilding, and that's the big question. Is if you ask them, are you rebuilding? They're not going to say they're rebuilding, and the players that they play don't make it seem like they're rebuilding. When you go out and sign Taj Gibson and Elfrid Payton and Wayne Ellington, that's not a rebuilding team. That's a team that they're trying to combine with the new players, combine with a Randall and some of the other new pieces, and try to be a 8 seed, 7 seed in the playoffs. I think it's absurd. It hinders the young players' ability to make mistakes. The idea that there's a conversation of whether Frank should play or not play because of other guys that are point guards like Elfrid Payton or a guy like Knox sitting last night while you play veterans. And again, I like Morris, and I think, but when you add up the collective group, Taj Gibson, and those guys are going to take time away from guys that you need to understand if they're good enough and if they can, and how to develop them. It's a shame that they did the right thing and tanked and the league changed the rules. So they then missed Zion and while they got, I think, a nice consolation prize in Barrett, and I think he'll easily average 15 points a game this year, he really struggles to shoot the ball. And so there's going to be a lot of nights where they struggle to make shots. Ellington can really, really shoot, and therefore he's going to play a lot because he can make shots. And Fizdale, again, if Fizdale wins 30 games, he's going to be fired. So his idea is, why would I play all young guys when I have guys that can give us a better shot to win? And the better shot to win keeps my job. So as a coach, I understand that completely. So he's stuck between what true fans want him to do and what the front office and what he thinks is best. I think it's going to be another long year. The bigger picture is that the word of mouth around the league is not to go play there. The idea is to hire a coach to combat that, and that has not been successful. The front office has struggled immensely, and most likely will continue to. I happen to, again, I like Julius Randle. I think Barrett's going to be good. I like Wayne Ellington. Portis can score. Morris can really score. They're going to win games. The 35 makes sense, 36, 37, I think. But, what in the big picture, it's going to be a long year.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a great year for the Knicks either. I know I've seen some people pick them as their surprise team to make the playoffs out of the East, but I just don't see it. I think Atlanta has a better roster. I think the Knicks are going to be somewhere between 14th and 11th in the East, if you ask me. I think that's realistic. I think Charlotte is easily the worst team in the NBA. Do you agree with me about that?
Yeah, I think they're going to be terrible. Terrible. Really, really bad. I saw them the other night, and while they played and won, I think they're going to be really, really terrible. So I agree with you.
Yeah, I think Charlotte's easily the worst team in the NBA and almost a lock to finish in last in the Eastern Conference. And then in that 12, the 11, 15 range, I think it's like Knicks, Bulls, Magic. I think they take a step back. I really don't think they're going to be as good as they were a year ago. I'm trying to think of who else. Oh, Washington, I think, is going to be in like that tier 2. And then I think the Hawks are going to surprise. I think Detroit's probably going to be around 10, 11 because I don't trust Blake Griffin's health. And him and Drummond to me is just an odd fit. And what's Reggie Jackson's future hold? I'm concerned with Detroit in the East, although some people think that they'll make it back to the postseason. What are your thoughts on the Raptors this year? Speaking of Dwayne Casey, his old team, obviously the reigning champions, Kawhi leaves. I think some people are too down on the Raptors. Are you down on Toronto?
It's a TBD because they have three guys with expiring contracts or with another year after this. So if they decide to do something for a Lowry, get something for Gasol, Ibaka, then all of a sudden everything changes and they end up being in the lottery but adding pieces and picks to Siakam, which I ultimately think will happen. So if you were to ask me today, I think they'll be in the lottery, and that has more to do with just big picture. They're not going to really compete with a off-the-bench Ibaka, a very, very slow Gasol, and really Lowry out there.
Yeah, to me they're interesting.
I think the East, basically I think like the seeds, if you put Boston and Indiana and the Sixers and Milwaukee as the four teams, I think the rest of the teams are a complete crapshoot this year.
Except for Charlotte.
Yeah. I mean, the next 4 to 10 teams, whether it's the Nets, whether it's some of those teams in that group. After that 10, then you get the Charlottes and the Knicks and some of the other teams that really don't have a shot to make the playoffs. But those, I think, 8 teams for 6 spots, I think it's going to get pretty bunched up in there.
Yeah, I think the East is more unknown to me than the West. Before we go, you said your championship pick or your West winner was Denver. Who do you like out of the East, and who do you think wins the championship?
I think I like Philly, Denver, and one of the two of those teams. I think those are the two teams I'm leaning on right now. I think it should be super fun, wide open this year. So really looking forward to it. Yeah,
that should be. I wonder what the odds are if FanDuel or DraftKings has like the final matchup bets on there. I wonder what that would pay out. One more thing before you go. You think the Yankees even up tonight?
I do. I think last game was a really I was there and very very tough to swallow, and the fact that Cole didn't really have his best stuff and they had so many chances, just couldn't get that one hit in the DD ball. I think they have to win tonight. The series is over if they lose tonight. The series is over if they lose tomorrow as well. So these are two must games, and I think this decision that Hinch made has helped the Yankees immensely, because if they can win the next 2 games, then all they need to do is split in 6 or 7, and with using Verlander in Game 5, it opens up a big opportunity for them to not have their horses on the mound in Game 7. So, these two to me are absolute must-wins, and that probably brings me to the last point, which is I'm so disgusted with Giancarlo Stanton and this scenario that's going on and him not being in the lineup again. I can't even fathom what this situation is going to take on if they lose, to sit this series out because of a quad issue after having such a great Game 1, after not playing the whole season, making $300 million, and to not be able to gut it out. I heard he was running at the stadium earlier today and looked fairly good. To not have his bat in the lineup is, as loaded as the Yankee lineup is, you can feel the lineup without him. Sanchez has been terrible. There are outs now. Gardner, the lineup used to be there's no outs. Now you can look and see 2 or 3 guys you can get out. And that's made Ed Encarnacion to see worse pitches and many other guys. and losing Stanton's bat is incredibly significant in the playoffs right now. And it's hard for me to say that considering nobody's been harder on him and his horrendous at-bats in the playoffs over the past couple of years. But losing him to this after what he's done is really, really disappointing and an enormous loss in my mind after what he's been able to sort of show in the past week.
Yeah, his injury might end up costing the Yankees the series if they lose tonight, and obviously they lost those 2 games without him in the lineup, Game 2 with the walk-off by Correa, and then Game 3 where they couldn't hit Cole in the first inning despite getting opportunity after opportunity. So, well, it was a pleasure to have you on today. I'll probably have you on again sometime during the season as we could just talk about what's gone on and whatnot, and I hope you have a great day. Go Yankees!
You got it. Thanks for having me on. Enjoy.
All right.